Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's see the top stories shaping our world. Iran suspends IAEA cooperation after the UN fails to extend sanctions relief. US President Donald Trump warns Afghanistan to give back control of the Bagram air base. And nationwide protests in Canada against Prime Minister Mark Carney's policies. Iran says it will stop working with the UN's nuclear watchdog after the UN Security Council voted not to lift international sanctions on Tehran. President Masoud Pezeshkian criticized what he called ill-considered actions by France, Britain and Germany, and said Iran's cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency would be suspended, despite Tehran's ongoing cooperation with the agency to resolve the nuclear issue. Sanctions on Tehran are due to return later this month under the 2015 nuclear deal snapback mechanism, adding new pressure on the agreement. Staying with the United Nations, it marks 80 years of existence, with world leaders gathering in New York for the opening of its annual General Assembly. Nearly 150 heads of state and government personnel are expected to take the stage next week. But the global organization faces some of the gravest global challenges since its creation in 1945.
Every September, the United Nations General Assembly provides a unique platform, one hall where every country, large or small, has a voice. This Tuesday marks the start of the 81st session under the theme Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development and human rights. The UN was founded in the aftermath of the Second World War with just 51 members. Today it counts 193 states, plus observer delegations such as the Holy See, Palestine and the European Union. Its purpose remains rooted in preventing conflict, promoting human rights and fostering international cooperation. By tradition, Brazil is always the first to address the Assembly, followed by the United States as host nation. After that, the order is set by rank and registration. This year, speeches are expected to be dominated by war and humanitarian emergencies. In Gaza, famine warnings have already been issued as the conflict between Israel and Hamas nears its second year. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will speak next week, while Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas will only appear by video after being denied a US visa. Ukraine will also be center stage. President Volodymyr Zelensky is scheduled to address the Assembly on Wednesday, with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov taking the podium on Saturday. Meanwhile, the Security Council will convene a high-level debate on the war. Other key speakers include Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian, who arrives amid urgent talks over Tehran's nuclear program, and Syria's interim President Ahmed al-Sharaa, given a rare UN travel exemption despite his group remaining under sanctions. His appearance will mark Syria's first post-Assad debut after more than a decade of civil war. Alongside conflict diplomacy, the agenda stretches across the world's other challenges. Climate change will again be a rallying call, especially from small island states most threatened by rising seas. But critics say its structures still reflect the world of 1945, not the multipolar reality of today. Proposals under the UN 80 Reform Initiative aim to make the organization more efficient, cut duplication across thousands of mandates, and place staff closer to the communities they serve. At the same time, there is growing debate over who will replace Secretary General Antonio Guterres when his mandate ends in 2026. The choice will again fall to the Security Council's 5 veto powers, raising familiar questions about legitimacy and balance.
Earlier, we spoke with a writer and journalist accredited to the United Nations, Abdelhamid Siam, about the UN General Assembly's decision to allow Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas to deliver a pre-recorded video during next week's high-level meeting. Siam shared his thoughts on the expectations for what the speech will address.
Mahmoud Abbas, in his speech, normally he talks about the suffering of the Palestinian people for the last 80 years. He will remind the people of the Nakba of 1948 and what happened when the Palestinian majority were expelled of their homes, and the Nakba did not end there, but it continued because the Palestinians still did not see their people in an independent state. He reminds the people that 1947 partition plan calls about creating two states, Israel and Palestine. One was implemented like in less than 2 years, and one is still waiting. He will talk, I'm sure, about the genocidal war in Gaza and the atrocities committed against the Palestinians and trying to destroy the livelihood of Gaza and the possibility of having a normal living condition in Gaza. So he will appeal to the world also to end the genocide. That is very important. He will also address the world that the state that the Palestinian is seeking is not a state to carry war with Israel, but to live in peace with Israel. And he, as he said in the past, we will have a state without arms. We don't need an army. He said it repeatedly. We just need a state that we can build our future, and our children will go to school, and we can build our institution, and we can have normal life. People can travel and come back to their state. And he will emphasize that this state includes the West Bank, East Jerusalem as its capital, and Gaza. And he would say there will be no Palestinian state without Gaza, and Gaza is always will remain part of the Palestinian territory.
A cyber attack on airport check-in and boarding systems, which began on Friday night, continued to disrupt operations at several major European airports through Sunday. Heathrow, Brussels and Berlin were among the worst affected, while Dublin and Cork reported only minor impacts. The attack primarily targeted electronic check-in and baggage drop, forcing airports to switch to manual procedures. 29 departures and arrivals were cancelled across Heathrow, Brussels and Berlin. And Brussels Airport has asked airlines to cancel half of their scheduled departing flights on Sunday to prevent long queues and late cancellations, signaling that disruption will continue through the weekend. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says this week has advanced Ukraine as a step closer to finalizing the European Union's 19th sanctions package against Russia, which he expects to be approved shortly. Zelensky said Ukraine will quickly implement the EU sanctions once confirmed and called on the United States to follow with strong measures. He welcomed the EU for including many of Ukraine's proposals in its sanctions against Russia. He also received ambassadors from Germany, Norway and the Czech Republic at St. Sophia's Cathedral, emphasizing their firm support for Ukraine's sovereignty.
This week has brought us closer to finalizing the 19th sanctions package against Russian aggression. We expect its approval soon. We will quickly synchronize the package in Ukraine. Russia's energy resources are being restricted. As well as the infrastructure of the Shadow Fleet, it will face new pressure. Cryptocurrency schemes used by Russia, specifically to bypass sanctions, will also be countered by Europe. Thank you. I am grateful that many of Ukraine's proposals have been taken into account in the EU sanctions package. We are constantly working on this with every one of our partners, and of course, above all, with the European Union and the Group of Seven. We now expect strong sanction steps from the United States as well. Europe is doing its part.
U.S. President Donald Trump is demanding the Taliban return control of Bagram Air Base to the United States, warning of bad things if Afghanistan refuses. The base, the largest U.S. military facility in the country, was abandoned during the 2021 withdrawal and has long been seen as strategically important. The Taliban, however, have firmly rejected the demand, insisting Afghanistan will not host foreign military forces.
Bagram Air Base, once the main hub for U.S. military operations in Afghanistan. For 2 decades, it hosted American forces and served as the largest U.S. base in the country. About 40 miles north of Kabul, Bagram housed long runways, aircraft hangars, and tens of thousands of troops. American forces abandoned it in 2021, just before the Taliban took back power. Now, Donald Trump says he wants it back. He first brought it up during a trip to the UK after meeting Prime Minister Keir Starmer and has since been repeating it.
Are you asking President to rule out U.S. boots on the ground to get Bagram back?
We won't talk about that, but we're talking now to Afghanistan, and we want it back, and we want it back soon, right away. And if they don't do it, you're going to find out what I'm going to do.
Trump later posted online, if Afghanistan doesn't give Bagram back to those who built it, the United States of America, bad things are going to happen. For Trump, the base isn't just about history, it's about strategy. Bagram sits close to China and Central Asia, and US commanders long saw it as a vital hub. But the Taliban say there is no chance of handing it over. A spokesman called Trump's remarks interference in Afghan affairs. The foreign ministry says it wants ties with Washington, but without any foreign bases on Afghan soil. Posting on X, a foreign ministry official said, Afghanistan and the United States need engagement with one another and can have economic and political relations based on mutual respect and shared interest, without America maintaining any military presence in Afghanistan. A military presence has never been accepted by Afghans throughout history, and this possibility was completely rejected when the Taliban returned to power. However, the doors seem to be open to other forms of engagement.
Staying with the U.S. president, he has announced a sweeping new immigration measure that could reshape the U.S. tech industry. Companies sponsoring skilled foreign workers on temporary work visas will now face a $100,000 annual fee. New H-1B visa fee will not apply to existing holders, White House said on Saturday. Alongside this, the administration is also offering a $1 million gold card visas for wealthy foreign nationals seeking permanent residency.
The Trump administration has unveiled its most dramatic immigration move yet, a $100,000 annual fee for companies sponsoring skilled foreign workers on H-1B visas. The White House says the policy is designed to protect American jobs while still giving firms access to top global talent.
This will ensure that the people they're bringing in are actually very highly skilled and that they're not replaceable by American workers. So it'll protect American workers, but ensure that companies have a pathway to hire truly extraordinary people and bring them to the United States to work.
We need workers. And one of the biggest problems we have is that people, they go to the best schools and they do great and they get great marks, and then they're thrown out of the country. You're not allowed to stay. This way, a corporation will be able, sort of like a signing bonus in baseball or football, a corporation will be able to get them to stay in the country, and everyone's going to be happy. And we're going to be able to keep people in our country that are going to be very productive people. And in many cases, these companies are going to pay a lot of money for that.
The administration insists the goal is to curb reliance on foreign labor and force companies to train American graduates instead.
If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land. Train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here, $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
They love it.
Alongside the H-1B fee, the administration is also offering a so-called gold card, a $1 million visa that provides wealthy foreign nationals a fast-track path to permanent U.S. residency.
So there's an incentive to hire an American, but there may be instances where it's better off doing it through expertise or whatever it may be. But they're both unbelievable, whether it's a gold card or anything else that we talked about today.
The new rules take effect on the 21st of September and could reshape the tech industry's access to foreign talent. While Trump insists companies are on board, critics warn the fee could stifle innovation and drive talent away from the U.S.
Thousands rallied across Canada against Prime Minister Mark Carney's policies. Demonstrators demanded urgent climate action, protection of Indigenous and migrant rights, and an end to Canada's military support for Israel.
About 2,000 activists marched through downtown Toronto on Saturday as part of nationwide protests against Prime Minister Mark Carney's agenda. At the centre of criticism was Bill C-5, the One Canadian Economy Act, which fast-tracks large infrastructure projects. Environmental and Indigenous groups say it bypasses safeguards in the name of economic growth. Another flashpoint was Bill C-2, expanding border powers and giving authorities greater access to personal data.
We are now at code red on the planet Earth. Humanity is unequivocally facing a climate emergency. And what we're here to say is stop all of the political, the economic stuff, and the legal stuff. We are in an emergency, and we've got to act as it is an emergency.
Protesters also condemned Ottawa's planned public spending cuts alongside billions earmarked for defence and demanded a full arms embargo on Israel.
Right now we're seeing this moment where the federal government is pushing forward anti-people, anti-climate, anti-Indigenous, anti-migrant agendas. Every law that Carney has put into place since now is about enriching the CEOs and hurting common people. He's arming Israel, he's pushing people against migrants, and we're saying no to that. We are drawing the line.
The protests were organised by a coalition of 14 groups, with marches also held in Ottawa, Montreal and Vancouver. Organisers said the protests aim to unite movements for climate justice, Indigenous rights, migrant justice and peace under a single demand, that Ottawa put people and the planet first.
Thousands of Israelis gathered in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv Saturday, demanding an end to the war in Gaza and the return of Israeli hostages still held in the Gaza Strip. Drone shows from Tel Aviv show the scale of the protests as thousands of protesters waved flags, carried banners with photographs of hostages and chanted slogans urging a ceasefire. Relatives of hostages criticized the Israeli government, saying its slow response and military attacks are putting those captives in greater danger. Baku's streets are set for an unforgettable battle as the Formula One Azerbaijan Grand Prix enters its decisive day. It promises a high-stakes race with drivers navigating one of the most challenging circuits on the calendar. Our correspondent Narchechek Jahangirli is at the Baku track to report on what to expect today.
Today is the day that we all expect, the unexpected. Fans or no fans, race day in Formula One are some of the biggest days in sport. And the best part is, it happens every 2 weeks. After Monza, Italy, the stage is now set here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Yesterday's dramatic qualifying session surprised us all as it continued for 2 hours, even longer than the race itself. With a record 6 red flags and 7 cars crashing into the walls, it hinted that the final race will be ruthless, and Baku's sharp turns and the narrow castle section will test the nerves of the pilots. Let's remember that this medieval castle section is the narrowest on the F1 calendar at just 7.8 meters wide. Drivers had 2 days to get familiar with the track, testing tires and learning how their cars behave. Weather will try its best to steal the show today, with rain in the forecast, strong winds and track temperatures around 20-21 degrees. That usually favors Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who has shown again and again how good he is in wet conditions. We have seen Verstappen's performance in many rainy races and on wet tracks. The Red Bull pilot handles it every time, and Max is really strong in these conditions. Let's see if he can manage it again. And coming off a brilliant win in Monza, he'll be chasing back-to-back victories. But the McLaren boys might not let him have it. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are in stunning form, both chasing Verstappen on track and also closing in on the Constructors' Championship. Let's quickly recall the standings. Piastri leads the drivers' table with 324 points. Norris is second with 293 and Verstappen follows with 260. In the team's fight, McLaren is far out in front with 617 points, more than double Ferrari in second place. With 7 races still left after Baku, McLaren could seal its second straight Constructors' crown right here in Azerbaijan. Ferrari, meanwhile, is desperate to turn things around. Lewis Hamilton still searching for his first podium since joining Ferrari and carries the unwanted record of 16 races without one. They'll be starting from behind, but the Italian team will fight to save their season. Their race starts at 3 p.m. local time here in Baku. On these streets, even the smallest mistakes will be unforgivable. We are about to witness the fiercest battle of engines and winds.
Turning to the region, and US President Donald Trump says he will welcome the President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, to the White House next week, their first bilateral meeting since 2019. The visit set for Thursday, 25th of September in New York is expected to focus on resolving a long-running dispute over fighter jets. Trump said talks will cover a major F-16 deal, Boeing aircraft purchase, and renewed negotiations of the F-35 program. Turkey was expelled from the F-35 project in 2019 after buying Russia's S-400 missile system. But Erdogan recently claimed he had reached an agreement with Trump and expects the jets to be delivered during his term. Azerbaijan and Rwanda have strengthened their partnership with the signing of key agreements on education, air services, agriculture, and public service. The agreements were signed during the Rwandan President Paul Kagame's official visit to Baku, where both leaders discussed expanding cooperation in politics, economy, and culture.
Rwanda's President Paul Kagame paid an official visit to Azerbaijan, receiving a full state welcome in Baku, including an honor guard and the national anthems of both countries. President Ilham Aliyev hosted Kagame, holding one-on-one and expanded meetings to discuss broad cooperation in politics, economy, education, energy and culture. During the visit, both countries signed several agreements, including an air services agreement, a cooperation agreement in education, and memoranda of understanding on agriculture, public service delivery, and investment promotion. These agreements were exchanged by respective ministers and officials in a ceremony attended by both presidents. In joint press statements, President Aliyev highlighted the growing political and economic partnership, praising Rwanda's support in international forums such as the Non-Aligned Movement and the UN. President Kagame underscored the similarities between the two countries and expressed Rwanda's commitment to strengthening bilateral ties in politics, trade and investment. The visit marks a new chapter in Azerbaijan-Rwanda relations, creating a platform for deeper political, economic and cultural partnership.
Earlier, we were joined by Tom Mulisa, Executive Director of GLEAD in Kigali, Rwanda, who said the latest meeting builds on a series of past engagements between Azerbaijan and Rwanda, including ministerial talks, presidential meetings at COP29, and earlier agreements dating back to 2004. Let's see more.
Thank you very much. I think the meeting was quite important, and I think it is a continuation of a series of meetings that have taken place before. We've the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan and that one of Rwanda meeting previously. And we've had also the two presidents, I think, meeting during the COP29. So this meeting comes after a series of meetings from 2004, 2017, 2019. I think this is cementing a series of meetings and memorandums that have happened before.
Armenia's ruling Civil Contract Party announced plans to initiate the adoption of a new constitution following the parliamentary elections scheduled for June 2026. The party said it would seek a constitutional majority and, if successful, put the draft to the nationwide referendum. Speaking at the party's 7th Congress, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan highlighted that Armenia had entered a new stage of its history after signing a peace declaration with Azerbaijan. He stressed that for the first time since independence, there had been no military casualties on the Armenian-Azerbaijani line for 1 year and 7 months. Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan said details of the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity project will be clarified in upcoming talks with U.S. officials. He noted that agreements with Azerbaijan outlined in the Washington Declaration ensure the unblocking of regional transport links. These will be based on sovereignty, territorial integrity and mutual benefit. Mirzoyan added that Yerevan is ready to hold consultations with Baku to set a time and place for signing a peace treaty. A delegation led by Armenia's National Security Service Director Andranik Simonyan arrived in Azerbaijan, according to Armenian media. Simonyan is expected to participate in the third International Security Forum taking place in Baku. This year's forum focuses on strengthening cooperation between security agencies to prevent humanitarian crises. His visit concludes on Sunday. Earlier, we were joined by Richard Giragosyan, director of the Regional Studies Center in Yerevan. He said the Armenian security chief's visit to Baku reflects a positive moment in diplomatic engagement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as Armenia and Turkey. Here is more.
Well, this is very significant, especially following the ceremony at the White House in August, where the Armenian and Azerbaijani leaders were able to achieve a remarkable degree of progress. What this Baku visit for 3 days by the Armenian security chief represents is the latest in a more positive momentum of diplomatic engagement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as Armenia and Turkey. And we do expect this momentum to continue.
A new peace deal between Baku and Yerevan is set to transform the South Caucasus into a connected tourism destination, with Azerbaijan emerging as a central hub for new travelers.
The peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia is opening the South Caucasus to international tourism. With borders reopening and regional transport links improving, Azerbaijan is positioning itself as a gateway for travelers exploring multiple countries, including Armenia, Georgia, Turkey and Iran. The country has invested heavily in modernizing airports, roads, railways, hotels and tourist facilities, making travel smoother and more convenient. Key infrastructure projects, such as a new 43-kilometre transit corridor linking Azerbaijan to its Nakhchivan exclave and beyond, will further enhance regional connectivity. Azerbaijan's rich culture, history and diverse landscapes are now more accessible, attracting visitors interested in adventure, heritage tours and wellness travel. The improved stability in the region is also reshaping international perceptions, presenting the South Caucasus as a safe and welcoming destination. Tourism growth is expected to boost the economy, create jobs and support local businesses. With its strategic location and modern infrastructure, Azerbaijan is emerging as the central hub for a thriving South Caucasus tourism network, offering travellers a seamless multi-country experience.
That's all the news we have for you. I'll be back at 10 p.m. for your next update. Stay tuned to A News.